In the previous tutorial, we introduced modern philosophy by introducing rationalism, as the rationalists are usually associated with Plato and others who prioritized reason and its faculties above the physical world and the senses. The empiricists were more akin to Aristotle's paradigm and practices. Empiria in ancient Greek refers to practical experience relating to bodily senses, sensations, and direct observation, and as the age of reason thrived with the scientific and industrial revolutions, practical methods with a much stronger naturalistic understanding of the world were also on the forefront. Not only were there a great deal of relevant empiricist philosophers, but their developments were also very relevant to the perspective being tackled in this series. As such, we will dedicate a few tutorials to covering as much about empiricism as we can without overshadowing the rest of the series. The first part deals with its Renaissance roots and context until the mid-17th century, and the next part covers from the end of that century until the 19th century. The very first representative of the paradigm that would later become empiricism was Leonardo da Vinci, though like Pascal and Galileo Galilei, he was not a proper philosopher. Art and science were commonly considered indivisible in his time, and the 15th and 16th century scientist, engineer, painter, sculptor, and architect excelled in most of his ventures, while highlighting the importance of the practical aspects of the scientific endeavor over purely intellectual ones. He greatly influenced Galilei, who became one of the most important figures of the beginning of the Renaissance, an astronomer who fought for Copernicus's heliocentrism, as well as a mathematician and a scientist with a strong emphasis in experimentation and practical solutions. Though, as we already noted, philosophy was not his main focus, physics and most sciences were still regarded as philosophical endeavors toward investigating nature, just like natural philosophy, and were also thoroughly intertwined with Aristotle's conceptions. Galileo went on to dethrone the Aristotelian categories and overall perspective, to move toward a mathematically unified theory of matter, dismantling the conception of elements, while also revolutionizing the theory of motion and eliminating the celestial-terrestrial distinction. Much like with Da Vinci, the philosophical developments of Galilei were very influential to empiricist philosophy, especially as he greatly focused on the experimental implications of philosophical concepts themselves, attributing the use of scientific inquiry on sense experiences as the only manner to know the truths of the natural world and their divinity, which were separated from the truth of the Christian scriptures, a clear rupture with the religious aspect of the scientific and philosophical endeavor from medieval philosophy, allowing for academic research separated from theological matters. In this context, the first official representative of modern empiricism was Francis Bacon, a British politician, lawyer, and philosopher in the 17th century. He defended an interconnectivity between politics, philosophy, and science, with the latter both being ultimately above mere tools, as they were becoming able to shape worlds themselves. The religious aspect still remained strong in the background, as he saw these as potentially able to restore humanity to its state from before the fall from Christian paradise. An ethical life, for him, then meant to act according to reason and logic, restraining one's passions towards self-discipline and rational assessment. Of a skeptical nature, he developed the first scientific method based on inductive reasoning, instead of the traditional deductive methodology which we're familiar with from logic, where the inferential direction is from universal or general statements to others of the same kind or to particular ones. Much like Descartes' method of finding general absolute truths which every other truth can rely upon, inductive reasoning focuses on a gradual building of knowledge from particular cases. Clearly against the universalization of scientific concepts, as they may be mere faulty generalizations or dogmatic assumptions based on a commonsensical consensus. Bacon focused on the falsifiability of statements, as they would give us a much more accurate picture of the world. A critic of reason as a way to attain truth in itself, he described what he called idols of the minds, claiming that without its recognition, scientific practice was destined to be guided by the scientist's own beliefs, what would be understood by the scientific community centuries later as confirmation bias. Altogether, with his focus on the public and cooperative, his perspective would become the main foundation for the current model of scientific practice, with falsifiability being revisited by Karl Popper and taking a central role in discussions of scientific methodology in the 20th century. Contemporary to Bacon, Thomas Hobbes, though being more well known for his politics, as we shall see later in the series, delved into an even more extreme form of empiricism. He embraced medieval nominalism, in that the only universal things are names themselves, which could be applied to each thing they refer to for their likeness, but did not exist separately from them. In fact, he denied not only Descartes' theories but also Aristotle's, and posited that everything was material, ideas, the mind itself, and even the Christian God, and went on to propose a prototypical notion of a computational mind guided by mathematical principles. Akin to Occam's razor, he justified these ideas in that all of these concepts can be understood in a material sense, and thus it is pointless to look for something beyond it. Though crude, his ideas greatly influenced Leibniz and what would become the current conceptions of computational minds and artificial intelligence. In the next tutorial, we will leave the late 17th century to examine some of the rest of the empirical thinkers who worked until the 19th century.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel for more tutorials. Support me on Patreon so I can keep making content. And as always, feel free to email me, ProfessorDaveExplains@gmail.com.